Welcome to the Hey Soul Sista podcast, where Mel Histon will guide you through life's big questions and bring you one step closer to doing this crazy journey as best you can.
Hey Soul Sisters. So regular listeners of the podcast would know that I've done a few episodes now around narcissists, dating a narcissist and having narcissistic parents. But today in the studio, I have the fabulous Dr. Ricki with me. How are you going, Dr. Ricki?
I'm well, thanks. Thanks for having me, Mel.
There you go. Dr. Ricki's from the Hummingbird Centre, clinical psychologist and director at the Hummingbird Centre. And we're going to have a talk about narcissists in the workplace. I don't know about you, but I've worked with narcissists in the workplace and it was hell on earth. But we'll come to that in a minute. Now, Dr. Ricki, before we get into narcissists in the workplace, have you been watching MAFS?
I have been watching MAFS. I am hooked on MAFS this year and last year.
Are you fascinated as a clinical psychologist, fascinated at all the personalities and how that's all working?
I certainly am, and I certainly do know that we all know that there are some people on that show not for genuine reasons and they're there to, get some more fame and attention and followers and things like that. But from a psychology point of view, it is fascinating for sure. And that ability to have videos on interactions and having someone neutral outside of the dynamic, being able to look objectively of that and be able to call it out. I really do enjoy that part.
I need to ask a question. Okay, Andrew the Texan, he accused Holly of being a narcissist, but I'm watching that going, to me, he looked like a total narcissist, gaslighting her and undermining her. Did I read that wrong?
That is classic narcissistic behaviour. They will often, the first person to call the other a narcissist is usually a narcissist. And it's classic gaslighting. If they've been called out on something or they know their behaviour is wrong, they need to redirect the attention off them back onto the other person. And so you're always worried when that first person calls the other one that. And that's not to say that sometimes it is the other way, but he clearly was.
Because it was funny. And I'm sorry if you aren't watching MAFS, but we're just going to go there for a minute because I found it so fascinating in terms of narcissism. I found it so interesting that first thing that we saw was that he talked about how great he was in bed, how his sexual prowess, how great he was in bed, how crap he told her she was in bed.
Yeah. How many partners he'd been with, kept the number.
It was I'm going grandiosity. Tick.
Yeah.
And then when they went to the commitment ceremony and the psychologists were calling him out on his behaviour, and then you saw him switch. And then when he got back to the group again, he was like, oh, poor me. And he shed a tear. And he told everybody how hard done by he was. He became the total victim and absolutely wrote her off, denigrated her. And I'm watching going, and he was gaslighting Holly. So she started to, the other people in the show thought she was a bit crazy. And I'm like, no wonder the poor girl, feels like she's a bit crazy. He's totally undermining and denigrating her.
This is what's good about the show, is it shines a spotlight on how these people work. So she didn't show him enough love and admiration in the bedroom. She hasn't met his narcissistic needs. When that happens, low self-esteem in the narcissist drops, and the only way to get it back up is a narcissistic attack and projection on the person who caused that. So you weren't good enough. And here's the evidence, I've had all these partners and it's nothing to do with me, it's you weren't enough. And this girl never met his needs for being loved and adored. And so we saw that classic narcissistic behaviour come out, and how he manipulated the group, turned it all back on her. And then because she's so upset by the treatment from him, because she shows upset behaviour, they go, see, she's crazy. And the focus, gaslighting, back onto the person who rightly reacts to the injustice of what's been done to them.
I was watching that absolutely fascinated and thinking about Sister and all the stories of women who come and being, abused by narcissists or gaslighted by narcissists. I'm watching going, to me, that seems like a classic situation. Yeah.
A classic situation. And the thing about that show is that this girl's not in a long-term marriage with that man with children and not being subjected to that day after day after day where she's being told she's crazy and having the other people around it reinforce it. She's in there for a short term. But if that was going on for a long time, what we see is the women then become so broken down because of their ongoing attacks. They start to question themselves or overly take responsibility, or if I just made him happier or whatnot. And over time, their self-esteem and confidence is broken down so much that they begin to stop questioning the narcissist, and that's when the narcissist has really got them, and they're too broken to leave in many ways.
Yeah, because unfortunately they start to believe.
They start to believe, and he's got the other people around convinced at the same time.
That's dangerous.
Yeah.
So what's a classic sign of a narcissist? You know, what's something that we can look out for just in everyday life?
You kind of hit the one of the biggest ones before, that grandiosity. So there's inflated sense of ego. There is really the superiority, self-centeredness. It's really about their own needs and not about anyone else's needs. Entitlement, lack of empathy is huge.
Because he had no empathy for Holly.
No empathy. And a lack of insight into his... To have empathy, you have to have insight into the feelings of others, and you have to have insight into your own self. So they lack their own insight. So everything's blamed on the other, and they have a lack of empathy. And so no amount of arguing or reasoning with that person trying to get them to see your side or to have empathy will ever work.
I'd done, as I mentioned before, I'd done a couple of episodes around narcissists with Kaz Amos, and she was talking about just how dangerous narcissists are.
Yeah, really dangerous. To be in an interpersonal relationship with them, a romantic relationship, as a parent, they can cause huge, mental health issues in their children, and in the workplace, it's a nightmare.
A narcissistic parent can really be soul-destroying for a child, because nothing that child can do is for them. It's all about appeasing or feeling that validation or the grandiosity of the parent.
Yes. So you can have a couple of different types of narcissistic parents, and a couple of different ways you can become a narcissist yourself by their parenting. So some narcissists are so special and better than everybody else, therefore their child is, and their child is overvalued in terms of their achievements and things like that. So that in turn can create a second generation narcissist. But some narcissistic parents are so either aggressive in their criticism of the child or cold and no empathy, that it can cause, it's trauma, it's emotional trauma, it's attachment disturbance in the next generation. If you imagine growing up with a parent that's got little insight and no empathy, and it's all about their need and not about the child's needs, it's a recipe for disaster.
Want to save your soul? Review us on Apple Podcast.
Can I ask a question? Is there a difference between being a narcissist and having narcissistic personality disorder, or are they the same thing?
No, that's a really good point, because the actual incidence of narcissistic personality disorder is really quite low. To get a clinical diagnosis of it is usually quite rare, far more common in men than women. So what more to look out for is those narcissistic traits. So there'll be a lot more people in the population that have the traits that won't go on to meet the criteria for the disorder.
Yeah. So what generally causes a narcissist?
Their parenting.
The parenting.
Yeah.
If you have a narcissistic parent, you'll probably become a narcissist potentially yourself.
Yep. So a narcissistic parent who's cold, emotionally lacks empathy, is critical, you can have a parent who's not a narcissist, a distant, emotionally distant parent. So they might have their own trauma or in the background, and they're just not emotionally available to the child. Or you can have a highly controlling, critical parent, or you can have a combination of the two. And then the two together means it's not about the child's emotions or the child's needs.
Yeah. I heard this term recently, covert narcissist. Can you tell us about that? Because that's my understanding is that can be a lot harder to pick.
Yeah, it's tricky, because there's some people that are far more easy to pick, like a Donald Trump or, whatnot. They're quite out there. It's quite obvious.
That Texan on maths, I'm sorry. I was just when he was pretty easy to pick.
Yeah.
I'm amazing in bed.
Yeah.
And you didn't live up to my expectations.
Yeah, and so that the arrogance is a classic sign to look for. A really arrogant, boastful, it's all about me kind of person. Really easy to pick, but in the workplace too, it's can have a lot more covert where you don't know it. And in workplaces, it's tricky because a lot of those characteristics of arrogance or whatnot, they come across really good in interviews, where confidence and things like that, confidence, being charismatic, outgoing, they're quite appealing when you're sitting on an interview panel. So when the research says that they're more likely to get the job over someone without narcissistic traits.
How does a narcissist at work act? How do we pick a narcissist in the workplace?
So what's good to know is that a lot of narcissistic people will be attracted to positions of power. So they will like to move up the ladder and be managers or CEOs. In saying that, there's lots of wonderful managers and CEOs out there that obviously are not narcissistic and are there because of other reasons like love working within a team, love giving to people and whatnot. So it's not to say, all people in those positions are like that. But what you want to look for is someone that maybe they've got really outgoing and charismatic, but the relationships are fairly superficial. It's hard to have a really deep, meaningful connection with them. They're controlling. They lack empathy of others. They're a boss where it's all about me and aren't I great and I've done this and I've done that rather than building up the team.
Yeah.
So they're more I than we. That grandiosity, they seek admiration. They don't like taking responsibility for anything. They won't say sorry. They won't apologise. They will take credit even when it's not their achievement or it wasn't their idea, but if it comes to make a mistake, they will blame other people.
Okay, Hey Soul Sisters, if you're listening, have you worked for somebody like that? I think I have. If they're not a narcissist, though, I say they were a workplace psychopath, and they made our lives, the team I was in, she made our lives a living hell. It was awful. So I'm interested to see if you think that this is narcissistic behaviour. I don't know. So it's so funny. So I went for the job interview, and this is a long time ago too, by the way. I went for the job interview and I kind of got a sense, you know how you listen to your gut, and I got a sense in the interview, I'm like, something doesn't feel right with this woman. I don't quite understand. There's an icky feeling I don't understand. And then I got offered the job. I took the job and I still got this really yucky feeling. I went and spoke to her and said, look, I'm not quite sure about the job. I'm trying to read her going, what's going on? I'm not sure. I ended up taking the job, and I noticed that she would do things really from the first day. The very first day that I started, she was warning me about all the people in the team that I was going to work with, what was wrong with all of them.
Ooh.
I remember I walked in the second day and she was like, you're 3 minutes late. And I remember going, I was really shocked because I'd come from a government department where you have flexibility.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you walked in 3 minutes late, you work 3 minutes later or 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later, it's not an issue. She made all of our team go and help her move house. So she'd gone and in a share house, and she made our team go and help her move house. And then I remember thinking, I don't know, this feels icky. This doesn't feel right that actually in the middle of the working day that we all have to go and move her furniture and load it up into our cars, our personal cars, and move her to her new place. This kind of doesn't feel right. I don't know, which is not a narcissistic thing in itself. But then I remember, sitting in the office, and it would just be me and her, and I'd hear her talking to her boss slightly disparagingly about everybody in the team and saying really, really nasty things. And I was sitting there actually feeling really sick, listening to all these horrible things she was saying about the people in the team to her boss. And I'm going, oh my goodness, like what would she be saying about me? And then one day she asked me to go and move her car, and she gave me the keys to her car. I went and moved her car for her. I came back and put her keys on her desk. Later on that day, she's like, where are my keys? And I was like, I left them on your desk. And she goes, well, they're not here now. And she's like, you have to buy me a new set of keys. I've got an Alfa Romeo or something like that. And I was mortified. I was like going, no one would have stolen keys off her desk. I put them on her desk, but all of a sudden the keys mysteriously disappeared. So I had to go and buy her a new key, which was $200. There was just all these little things that just felt icky. Finally, the good thing was that finally other people in the organisation recognised it as well. They ended up getting rid of her. But she'd also always tell us about how great she was. She was so great. But then I don't know, it was one of the worst experiences I've ever had in a work sense. And I had to go have counselling about it afterwards because I went in there like really confident. Like I'd come from this like a really great position in a government department. This was in a private company. But it actually really wrecked me. I remember I vomited at work one day. Like it was really horrible being around her and hearing her say all these horrible things all the time about the people that I was working with. And I almost sometimes felt as though she was doing it to threaten me. Like it was really, I don't know if that's a narcissist thing or if that's just a psychopath thing.
Well, there's a strong overlap between being a narcissist and being a psychopath. Being a psychopath is basically having no empathy. So I'm not saying this woman has NPD, but certainly there's traits there that you see. And I think you touched on something that's so important is that I hear this all the time. If that gut instinct to this person is yuck, then you're probably on the money. Or something else seriously is wrong. And you need to listen to your gut. And you also touched on something else there that's really important is we mentioned if Holly was in a longer term relationship with this guy, the longer you stayed in that workplace or the longer she was there or the longer you're in the relationship, the more the confidence and the self-esteem is eroded. And so when people come into work and they're talking to me about this narcissistic person in the workplace, or I'm in organisations where I see it, the longer it goes on, the mental health of everyone around begins to break down and their confidence. And so one of my things is I really need something to happen with this person where they're held accountable, or you need to, that won't happen, choose to leave. Because the longer it goes on and the more that sense of self in yourself is broken down, the longer it takes to repair and recover.
Want to fill your soul with more? Go to thesistercode.com.
So what do we do? If you kind of are working with, and it's hard if it's your boss as well, and I guess it's different if it's your boss compared to your colleague.
It is. It's different and it's hard. So one thing is narcissists are bullies. And they use fear-based intimidation strategies, and they lack accountability for their behaviour and they lack empathy. So if it's your boss, it's hard to hold your boss accountable, isn't it? Like, no, I clearly left the keys on that table. I'm not replacing them, because you fear then your position will end or life will be made more hell at work or whatnot. But trying to be assertive, as long as you're appropriate and you're assertive, I think that if we are anxiously give in to the narcissist and run around and apologise and walk on eggshells around them, the more entitled and the more grandiose they believe they can be, because nobody holds them to account. And when more than one person can hold them to account is when we see change, whether the narcissist is at your workplace or it's Harvey Weinstein or whoever it is, it sometimes takes that collective. If there's no way to hold the narcissist assertively to account or avenue to go above, then some people do have to make the decision to leave the workplace because it's not worth the impact on themselves and their family.
You know what I stupidly did? I let her move into my house.
Oh, no.
I wasn't living there. I didn't live with her. I had moved out of the house that I lived in that I owned, and I'd moved in with my partner, who then became my husband. And so she moved into my house. And I remember that was the worst thing. I was like, when they finally let her go, and we never saw her again. She never came and said goodbye to the team. She was gone. We had to do interviews with HR and all of that. Yeah. So she would have known that HR came and interviewed us, and we told them what was going on, and they were building a case against her. But then I was like, holy shit, she's living in my house.
Hopefully she just disappeared from that as well.
But do you know what? To her credit, she just, and I didn't go through a real estate agent. I'm such an idiot. But she ended up just leaving the keys in the letterbox and texted me and said, I've gone.
Okay.
So that worked out.
That worked out well.
Oh, don't let your boss move into your house.
No, and I think always follow your instincts. Your gut is so wise,
I did not listen to my gut around any of that at all. Any of that.
Let's get soulful on social media. Search the Sister Code Facebook page and follow us on Instagram.
So I guess in government organisations and things where they have a HR department, you probably have some sort of recourse or to go and actually talk to them, and we were able to do that because my other team members, they were all experiencing that as well. I wasn't the only one, so they're going, oh my God, this is not okay. We were. Isn't it interesting that you go, I'm a happy, confident person, but she absolutely shrunk us, all of us individually, and then we finally as a team went to HR and we're like, this is what's going on for us. And other departments had seen it as well. So thank goodness it was seen by other people. But we had recourse to do that. But if you don't have a HR department, you really do either potentially just have to make that decision.
Yeah, I think there's still ways, even in, a non-government or private enterprise, to assertively make what's happening for you known. And there's also avenues like Safe Work and your GP and other places where you can go, because it's not acceptable anywhere. And it is hard because the consequences if that person then bullies you further. So it's always just a matter of, can your voice be heard? Is there a possibility your voice can be heard so that this stops for you and stops for everybody else? Or is there no option, but you need to remove yourself from the situation?
Yeah. Is there anything you can do to disarm a narcissist at work?
I think that being assertive, being clearly assertive and not just kind of giving in to them, walking on eggshells. I would, if you think you've got a narcissist on your hands, I would keep notes of things. I would keep records of things. They clearly unravel over time, where, because the dishonesty is rife because you can't take any responsibility for anything. So, lies happen to cover things and what's the name. So usually they unravel with time. And, really learning how to not take it personally, that they project their own insecurities and their own low self-esteem onto you, and it's got nothing to do with you. The trauma that these defences hide happened in their early years. It's got nothing to do with you. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Dr. Ricki, you do a lot of work with organisations.
Yeah.
How common is it? How often are you seeing narcissists in different organisations?
Certainly in high up, you can have narcissism in organisations, but I do work with lots of places where, they've got fantastic leaders. The research does say that it's increasing in young people, that we've got a more entitled younger generation coming through that have more inflated self-views and higher demands of what they should be entitled to in the workplace in terms of money and status and things like that. So that'll be interesting to watch in the generations. It is about double the rate in men than women. So there are females that do have it, but it's doubly more common in men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you find that people come to you as a clinical psychologist because they recognise that that's an issue and they need help? Because when I went to have counselling, I went and saw a clinical psychologist. I was like, this has happened to me. I didn't know about the term narcissism back then, but I was like, this is happening and I've lost my confidence. Is that what happens when people come to you?
People will come to me because they've got it with a manager or someone in their workplace, and people will come to me because they're in marriages with one. People come to me because their mother or their father was one. So it can cause a lot of mental health distress. Organisations come because the culture in the organisation is of such a worry that they want input into what's happening and some help. So you'll be consulted to do work with managers or supervise employees and do work within the organisation, because it, can cause, there's breakdown in connected relationships in narcissism. So it'll cause the same issues, whether in an organisation or in a family or...
Okay, so if you think you're working for a narcissist, or if you're having problems in the workplace, or apparently with a parent or a loved one, you can reach out to Dr. Ricki.
Yes, seek help. Even if they've got to you for that long that they've got you so convinced it's you, which is their power, then just still seek help. Just go to your GP, get a referral, reach out. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what's interesting? A woman that I know came to Got Your Back Sister, and she was telling me that she was in a relationship. She didn't realise how toxic it was, but he had gaslighted her so badly that he had her convinced that she was bipolar.
Yeah.
And she went and had 3 sessions with a psychologist, and the psychologist said, you haven't got bipolar, you're just with a narcissistic man.
That's right. And she's probably listened to that for 10 years before she finally had the courage to go. So be brave, go and seek help, because that's what they do. They frequently convince their partners, especially their female partners, that they're crazy or they're the abusive one or they're the narcissist, like this guy on Maps, classic, that they're the problem. So seek help. Yeah. I think that because women live in this, and men, because, it's just more common for women, I think, but because you live in this relationship where you're told you're the problem all the time, it's hard to then be brave enough to seek help,
At the end of the day, if you're not sure, just go and see a counsellor or psychologist and go and have that conversation, because it's heartbreaking to think that you could be living in that situation where your self-esteem, your self-worth is being attacked. It's slowly going down, and actually you're totally fine.
You're totally
fine.
And sometimes you just need the strength of a team of supportive people around you to help build that back up while you're recovering from that can go, no, actually that's not okay.
Yeah.
You know, you've done the right thing.
Yeah, you're fine, sweetie. It's not you.
It's not
It's
you.
not you. It's them.
It's not you, it's them. And, you know, we can be that extra strength while you're recovering your own.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Ricki, so how can people reach out to you?
So we've got practices in Broadmeadow, Newcastle West and at Waters Bay. So our website is www.hummingbirdscentre.com.au, and you can call us on 4946 0919.
Thank you so much
Thanks for having me.
for coming in. I'm really glad that we cleared up that maths thing.
There's probably going to be a narcissist on every season we'll be able to comment on.
I love it. I love it. Okay, thanks so much for listening, Soul Sisters.
Thanks for listening to Hey Soul Sista with Mel Histon. What would help you on your crazy life journey? Email Melissa at thesistercode.com.